Hi Stampers, it's Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. Welcome to our Monday Live. I'm not technically live because I'm still on my way back from Vegas from Stampin' Up's Leadership Convention, but I didn't want you to miss out. So we're still having our normal live today, and hopefully I'm showing up in the comments to chat with you all. But today we are doing a triple Z fold card. And so that's this one here. It's a triple bridge Z fold. Okay. This one opens up and makes a great display, and then of course it folds closed for mailing. And I'm excited to show you how it's done. Let's move down to my desk. Okay, so here is our card. As I said, it is a triple bridge Z fold card. And that's how it looks closed. I've done several of them. This was the first one I made. I really liked how this one came out in a Christmas card version. For our team meeting, I did this Halloween version. It was a great way to use that designer series paper that had the pattern, and I was able to cut it, in succession so that it does that great scene in the back. This was the other scene paper. See how in the back there the pattern continues and gives us that cute little street view. But as I said, we're doing the fall version today. So that's this one here. We are starting out with a piece of early espresso cardstock, and this is 8 inches by 11 inches. So it's just a little bit narrower than our standard cardstock. What I did was I put it in my trimmer and I just took a 1/2 inch off the side. That's all I did. So now we have this 8 by 11 piece of cardstock. Okay, we're going to need 2 pieces of designer series paper. This one is going to be for the back on the inside of the card. This is the one that was that scene in our Halloween card. And this is 9 1/8 inch by 4 inches. And then we need a second one of designer series paper that's going to be complementary but non-directional. So this one here is 6 3/8 by 3. And then I made these labels using the traditional labels. And then we're going to stamp a sentiment on that using the wonderful thoughts. Okay, so let's start out with the cutting that we need to do for our base. We're going to start out with this. And the first thing that I want to do is that I want to score this. I'm going to have the long side across the top. And then I want to score at 1 3/8. And then I'm going to score at 2 3/4. And this is important that I go the whole length because I want these to be exactly the same. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this and I'm going to cut this at 4 1/4. So I'll have these 2. Now I want to take my 4 1/4 inch piece, and where I scored here, I'm going to score the exact same thing on the other side. So I'm going to come in at 1 3/8. And then 2 3/4. Okay. Then the two inside ones are going to be valleys and the outside ones will be mountains. Okay, so that's part one of our card base. Then we need those 3 strips that are going to go across the front. And so we're going to do that out of this piece. That's why I needed these 2 score lines to be the same as our base, because we need them to match. But from this section, what I want to do is I want to come over to 8 1/4. So I'm going to put my score lines this side, and I'm going to do 8 1/4. And this piece I'm not going to need. Then I'm going to turn this and I'm going to cut this into 1 1/4 inch strips. Oh, looks like my track is dirty. I don't know if you can see that, but all this little fuzz in my track is making it look like I have a dull blade, but I shouldn't. Okay, so we're going to come in at 1 1/4. And then this one at 1 1/4, and it's going to leave the final one at 1 1/4. So these will be equal size strips. See how this one was all kind of jagged? I don't know if you caught that, but there's a bunch of little fuzz on this one, and these went nice and straight. And what that was a fuzz inside the track of my trimmer. So make sure you keep that clean. Okay, so as I said, these are going to go across the front, but we're only going to use these score lines at one end. Okay, so we're going to burnish these. So I'm going to make sure that I am, even. And then again, making sure I'm even. We're going to burnish this one. And we're going to do that to all 3. Okay, so that's going to be our base, these pieces here. Then we're going to take our designer series paper. And as I said, this is going to decorate in the back. So I'm going to cut this one first. And I want 1 1/8 inch strips. So I want 3 of those. Okay, so I have 3 at 1 1/8. Then I want this one at 2 3/8. And then I should have enough to do 3 more at 1 1/8. Now, if this is a pattern that you want to continue, like our Halloween card over there, then you want to keep these in order. With mine, I don't think it's going to be much of a big deal because even if I mix these up, it's not going to be too obvious. Okay. You'll notice when I pull this apart that my designer series paper is actually going over this cross member here. And then it's going over this one right here. So this strip continues up to here, and these two strips continue up to there. Okay. Meaning this one is going to measure right up to the edge. So I want to go into my score line and then up to the top. So that will adhere right there. And this one's going to do the same thing at the bottom. And you can do that with liquid glue, or you can do that with seal. Because I'm using seal, I'm using more than normal. But I want it butted up in there and flush with the bottom. And then this one, like I said, I'm doing the reverse. This one's going to come over here, and I'm going to split the difference. So I'm looking here to make sure that my gaps between them are the same. And then I'm just making sure I'm butted up to there. Okay, now it may be easier to go ahead and decorate this now before we attach the other end. Now it's up to you, because you can, you know, shove down into there, but I just think it's simpler to come in and do these before I glue down that other end. Okay, as I said, this one's going to go right over the top. Oops, forgot this one in the middle. Then our next piece of designer series paper is going to decorate these strips. So I'm going to bring in my other designer series paper and my trimmer. And we're going to cut this into 1-inch strips. And remember, this one has to be non-directional, and you'll see why in a bit. And then we're going to cut them to 5 1/4 inches long. Which is going to give us the 3 squares at the end down here. Okay. Now, our reasoning for that non-directional is that these are going to flip 180 degrees, because we have our square on the top and bottom is over here on the left, whereas my square on this one is going to be on the right. So we're going to go ahead and adhere those. See, so you can see when we turned that one 180 degrees, if that had a pattern that needed to be upright, one of them is going to be wrong. Okay, now we're going to adhere these ends. So what I want to do is bend these two over. So I have my 5 1/4, but I want this one underneath. Okay, so it's going to go right like that. So it's best for me to glue them when they're flat so that I know for sure when it goes into the envelope, it's going to fold shut. But I want to keep an eye that it is flush along the top and the edge here. Same thing on this side. Keeping my adhesive under that section that's going to be covered up. Okay, so there's one side. Then I'm going to come over and do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to take my 1-inch square that way so that this flushes up to the end. And then I'm going to adhere that one just underneath. May have been easier to put it on this end, actually. I'm going to keep that centered and keep it flush with the edge here. Okay. Now these two, this section and this one are actually going to go underneath. And so the first couple times it gets a little confused. And so it does take some maneuvering. It will get there, but it takes a little maneuvering. You will find after you have opened and closed it several times, that gets way easier. Okay, so that's just a matter of the card working into itself. Okay, now we're ready to stamp our sentiment. So I'm going to bring in our labels and our early espresso ink and our thinking of you sentiment. Okay, this one I'm going to adhere flush. Let's see how I want this to go. I want my single one on this side because I'm going to put my ribbon right here and I want my sentiment right there. Okay. Again, it's going to take a few times, but that will work itself in, I promise. I'm going to go ahead and stick this one flat. I'm going to put the smaller one on top of it, popped up on dimensionals. I'm going to bring in this ribbon. It's an irregular weave trim, and it's very fall-like, and I really like it on this card. It's a little difficult to work with. So you may want to bring in your tweezers. Because what I'm going to do is wrap it around that cross member right here. And then I'm going to tie a bow. But because of the irregularness of it, it's a little persnickety. And maybe you even want to just do a faux bow. That might even be even better. So I'm going to hold my knot. And then if it was long enough, you'd make loops out of it like I did with my first one. But if you want a faux bow, then you would just come in and tie a knot. And maybe that works even better with our little rustic look here. And then if we want to, we can come in and trim it off to be the right length. And then I'm going to put the sentiment on the back. So I'm going to flip this over and adhere my Very vanilla to the back side. And that will give plenty of room to write a message and sign your name. And of course, a little accent here. But there is our card. I just had to remember to grab this underneath. And then when it goes back together, see, got to be underneath. And when it goes back together, feed those underneath as well. Okay, so there is our triple bridge Z-fold card.